I'm ready to do columns, and I notice that my columns sit right close to where these X's are and that go through here, right? So this is the X that goes between the 8 and the 8. So if I take this 8 and this 8 and I find that line, and then I take this line that's going from the back of the room up to my station point, that's this line, which means that column sits right here. I'm going to draw a horizontal ellipse. I'm going to keep drawing it until it's about the size I think it should be for a column in that part of the room. Then I'm going to go here and here up towards the ceiling. If I want to find out how tall that column's going to be and where it's going to hit the ceiling, I make like an ant, right? So I'm standing here at the 8-foot into the room. I'm walking over to the wall towards vanishing point right. I'm walking up the wall, straight up and down until I hit the ceiling. Then I'm walking away from vanishing point right into the room. And when I get to the center line of this column, that tells me where that's supposed to be. So I draw a horizontal line there, and I put the ellipse up the top on that. At the top of my column, I'm using the frowny part of the ellipse. At the bottom of my column, I'm using the smiling part of my ellipse because it's below my eye level. So my column's going to be here. And it looks like it's going to cover that back corner. I want to draw these two columns in. They happen on these lines. This line is actually the line between those two 16 feet, right? So I'm finding that. That's this line out here. And then I go from this 8 out here, and that's the X. It's where this line from the 8 crosses that line from the 16, right? So I'm going to take this line from the 8 out here, and it looks like this is a spot for a column. And from this 8, I come out to that 16, and this is a spot for a column. Now I want those columns to be wider than the column in the back because they're closer to me, right? So one of the first rules of perspective is that things get smaller as they move off in the distance. Therefore, I'm going to make sure it's just a little bit bigger than that as it comes out into the room. Then I'm going to make this the same size as that one because they're the same distance from my eye. Using the smiley part of the ellipse for the bottom of the column because it's below my eye level. I'm shooting straight up. I turn my paper to the side and I look at the edge of my paper to make a straight line, of course. Shoot straight up towards the ceiling. And it looks like those are going to go right off the page because if I walk over here to the wall and I go up the wall, I'm going to come off my page. So the column is just going to go right to the edge of my paper. It's going to cover part of the door and it's going to cover part of the mirror. So on this mirror, I didn't erase totally the end of it. Here I kept a little light construction line so that I could see where the end of that mirror is. I'm going to cross across this way and that way to find the middle of the mirror, this direction, and then this middle of the mirror goes towards the vanishing point, but it's almost horizontal because it's like right there on the 5 foot. I want to make sort of a rococo design here on this mirror. So I'm going to put a little circle right here. I'm going to put a little circle right here and a little circle right here. I'm going to start to imagine something coming this way and this way from those circles. Maybe I'm going to put something on the corners like a teardrop shape. I'm imagining one here. I don't really need to draw it in, but I kind of just wanted to know where this was supposed to land, so I kept that there. This maybe goes like this. Just drawing an S-curve to kind of create a little bit of a see, this is going to go that way, so it's got to arch up more there. Helps me to know where my end is so that I can get that drawn in, something like that. Then I might go in here and create as much detail as you want. It's not really important to me that you do a lot of detail in these kind of things. Again, we don't want it to distract from the overall drawing, but we want, just for fun, to have some stuff drawn in places like that. That'll be more fun for us to color. Now, outside of that, since I've done this ornate frame, I'm just going to put a little line, perhaps, that sort of comes in here and there to frame it in, so that when I go in there with my markers, I know when to stop that color. I want to get something here that's going to be a little bit more ornate. Maybe imply that there's like a flower or a scroll on the end of these to make this cabinet live a little bit more realistically or with a little bit more detail. When it's time to do the rug, with a carpet in there, I want to make it round. It almost touches this column, it almost touches this column, it almost touches this column, right? So I know that I'm going from here, I'm making little marks in my drawing, and here, and here. So I've got to make a curve that's going to do something like this. Now, I know it's supposed to be an ellipse. Why isn't it looking at elliptical? Because it's so low below my eye that it's starting to look round, isn't it? The table and the chairs sit, the table sits in the middle. It's a circle inside of that, kind of like a target. And the chair legs all should line up along circles inside of that too, right? So let's go about halfway from the center to the edge of the columns to say there's a table there. Now I start drawing an ellipse, but I want it to be rounder here on the bottom, don't I? I want it to be kind of related to this ellipse here. So I'm going to take the same amount of room between there and here. I'm just going to keep drawing around it and around it and around it until it feels good to me. Notice how many lines I had to make. See all these crappy lines out here? I'm going to let those go. When it's time to draw the end of this table, I'm just going to use the one that works, right? So let's imagine that that table is about 30 inches high, right? It's about the same height as this buffet over here. We have this line coming out. If we go to this 8 foot and we come up to the wall and we draw into the room from the left, we can find where 30 inches is out here in the room. We're gonna come here, say this, if that ant starts here in the corner, in the middle of the table, walks over to the wall, walks up the wall 30 inches, then comes back in from left vanishing point into the room, it's this line right here. So where this line meets that line is gonna be the top of my table. I draw a horizontal line across that because I know I need a horizontal ellipse. Now this is closer to my eye. We know that if we have an ellipse at eye level, it looks like this, right? And as it gets down to the floor, it's going to be very round. But here it's going to be very flat ellipse, and here it's going to get rounder, and it's going to get rounder, and it's going to get rounder until it gets to be a perfect circle as we look down at it at the floor, right? So here at 3 feet, we want it to be somewhat elliptical and not so round as that is, but we want it to be the same. So let's make a column. Let's go to this line that we made for the bounding box of our table and come up to this line here. Coming up to that horizontal. So now I have a bounding box for that ellipse. I don't want it to be tight like that. That looks like I'm looking across it too much. I want to look down on it more. So I'm going to open it up. Wider. I'm going to drop down a little bit and draw another ellipse below it for the side of the table. If you want to take your eraser at this point, clean this up a little bit so you can see the top of your table in there. Great. I've got chairs sitting here and there. These chairs are going to be in 2-point perspective from my eye. So it looks like there's a chair sitting along this line and along this line. So I'm going to take here and I'm going to head off towards right vanishing point. And then I'm going to come out about to the edge of the carpet. Draw another line towards right vanishing point. Here I'm headed towards the left vanishing point. And here I'm headed towards the left vanishing point. So I'm finding a footprint for a chair on the floor. That also sets me up for this chair over here. Vanishing point right, vanishing point right. Just set that footprint up here. And then these two across this way. The seat of my chair is halfway between the table and the floor. It's 18 inches, correct? The back of my chair is at 36. So if this table is 30, I want to come up to my 3 foot. So let's come up to the 3 foot. That's where this mirror is. Let's take this 8 foot up to the mirror, in from vanishing point left. At the middle of the table, this is 3 feet. I'm going to draw right and left across there. I'm going to get myself another ellipse outside of this. That's telling me how high my chair is supposed to be. I'm still going to vanishing point right on the back of the chair. Halfway between here and there, that's my seat. Now, I also can find the seat if I wanted to go 1.5 feet up here. Come out into the room. Take this to that and this out there. Should give me 1.5 feet out there. But it's easier for me to just take this line here and say, look, if that's going to be 3 feet, then this is going to be 1.5 feet, half of that. To draw the tops of the chairs, the seats of the chairs, the legs of the chairs towards vanishing point. My next step is to make these chairs a little nicer. If I have a chair that sits straight up and down in the back, that's not going to be comfortable, is it? I've got to lean those chair backs back a little bit. So I'm going to come from the seat up to the top. On this one, I'm going to walk away from vanishing point left just a bit. I'm going to put my seat back here, moving towards vanishing point right, and I'm going to tilt this back like that. That's going to be a comfortable chair back. I'm going to go up this one, and I'm going to step towards vanishing point right a little bit. So my new seat back is going to be back here just a little bit, and this is going to tilt. If I want to bend it, I can do a bend in there. These legs here may go straight up and down. They may come back a little bit, right? So if this needs to come back on this line a touch and then be drawn up to here, let this come back a touch, line it up with that one, draw it out this way. If this wants to come forward a little bit, then let it come out here and draw it in there. This one needs to come forward to meet it. So I'm just doing a dot to dot once I figure it out. And then at the bottom of each of these, if I want to have round chairs, I'm going to put a smiling ellipse and a second line up to create the tube. Probably want to put a second line here to create a board for the seat. And I probably want to put a rounded thing here to create a cushion for my seat, so that my dining chairs start to look a little bit more comfy. I'm going to have a leg come straight down here in between these two chairs. So I'm thinking there's going to be a leg here, and a leg here, and a leg here, and a leg here. So I'm going to bring a leg here. Maybe I want to put a tablecloth on this. I would draw another ellipse right about here if I wanted the tablecloth to come to your knee. Imagine where that is. Do an S curve right along here. And the tablecloth would come out at a little angle here and out at a little angle here. And you guys could do some fabric treatment all in here if you wanted. If I were to put a vase or a bowl in this table, I'd draw an ellipse right here, come up the center line, draw an ellipse right here. Drawing an S curve inverted, convex, concave. And that should do it for the dining room.